That moves us to our action agenda, starting with action as necessary or appropriate on matters discussed in executive session. Do we have any motions tonight?
I move that we approve selected employment items per Exhibit A.
Do I have a second? All in favor? And the motion carries 6-0.
I move that we approve the request for instruction at a place other than school for the student identified with the initials AK.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? And the motion carries 6-0.
I move that we approve the contractual matter regarding the new cafeteria at Irmo High School, Phase 2, with the requirement that an agreed-upon substantial completion date will be made prior to the payment of the third pay app.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? And the motion carries 6-0.
I have a point of question. We are going to make a motion on the easement, or the administration would prefer that, yes. Okay, I move that we approve the easement for construction and access at the property at 1400 Kennerly Road.
Point of clarification. I don't know if we're ready for that one yet. We were just getting briefed on it, or are we ready for approval for Kennerly Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not ready for
I
that.
withdraw my motion and I blame Mr. Herring. No, I'm just kidding. I was looking down there and he was like, yeah. So I
thought you were
withdraw.
talking about the other easement.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Okay, I'll
easements.
go on to the next one. I move that we approve the easement for Lexington County for the corridor improvement on Columbia Avenue per Exhibit E.
That one I will second.
All in favor? And the motion carries 6-0. Is that it?
I move that we approve the issuance of a RFP for A&E services for the design of a bus loop, a car rider loop and potential locations for Chapin Bus Depot.
Second.
All in favor? The motion carries 6-0.
I move that we enter into a memorandum of agreement, MOA, between the Richland County Recreation Commission, RC, and School District 5 of Lexington and Richland counties regarding facility usage per Exhibit F.
Second.
All those in favor? And the motion carries 6-0. That moves us to,
Ms. Snipes, I have a motion. I make a motion that the board direct our council to amend a motion for reconsideration in Exhibit G to remove the first and last sentences of paragraph A.
can you repeat that, please?
I make a motion to direct our council, general counsel, to amend the motion for reconsideration shown in Exhibit G to remove the first and last sentences of paragraph A.
Do we have a second? I feel like people are probably trying to figure out what that is.
Mr. Scully, I believe it might need to be Exhibit J.
Yeah, I'm
Is that
confused. I
correct?
don't see what we're talking about.
Exhibit G in item J. Exhibit G in item J, is that what you're referring to, just for clarification? Yes, sir. Okay.
I'm confused.
What paragraph
The issue
is it?
is, I think we need a second to discuss it, but
Oh,
nobody
I'm sorry.
seconded it because I don't think we understand what we're looking for. I think,
Yeah, so I'm pointing you to the motion for reconsideration. What exhibit is that? I have it as G, is that not it? So on page 1 of the motion for reconsideration, paragraph A, remove the first sentence and the last sentence of that paragraph. Keep everything else.
okay. So
What's
Exhibit
that?
G. I see now, okay. Do you see it? We can't unless this is seconded, and I don't,
If there's no second, then just move on.
okay. If we don't have, do we have a second for this? Okay, then we'll move on. That takes us to number 13, approval of the memorandum of agreement between the Richland County Recreation Commission and School District 5 of Lexington and Richland counties. Do I have a motion?
We have approved that already, but we do have some guests
Sorry.
here from Richland County. If y'all wanted to speak
Sorry
to
about that.
I apologize.
Come on
Speak
down.
to the action. Dr. Gary?
Thank you, Dr. Ross, members of the board. Joining me this evening is Jess Sowell, Assistant Superintendent of Athletics for the Richland County Recreation Commission, and Bobby Jensen, President of the Irma Little League. And they want to speak to us about the importance of this agreement you guys just agreed to. Yep.
As he said, I'm Jess Sowell, the Assistant Superintendent of Athletics for Richland County Recreation Commission. Just want to say thank you for voting this through. Very much looking forward to reestablishing a relationship that we had years ago. We all serve the same kids, and we believe that this agreement is going to afford both parties to better serve our community. And I'll let Bobby speak about Irma Little League. Thank you guys again.
I won't take too much of your time. Just want to say thank you as well. I'm sure you've seen the last 4 years we've had a little bit of success at Irma Little League. And what this does is it allows us to, as Dr. Ross said, go from I can't to I can. And the I can't is we have kids and families on the waiting list. By approving this, we can now say I can take you off the waiting list and let you join our community of America's pastime, which is baseball. So I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for the community to allow us to serve more and enjoy the game that I grew up playing. And my volunteer hours are now being worth it. So I just want to say thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank y'all. That moves us to number 14, renewal of the District 5 Foundation of Excellence and Memorandum of Understanding and Agreement. As she comes forth, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the District 5 Foundation of Education Excellence Incorporated Memorandum of Understanding and Agreement, Exhibit J.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Taylor?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. We are in School District 5 so blessed to have such a supportive educational foundation that loves our children and our teachers and staff so well. So I am happy to introduce tonight our district liaison, Lynn Collins from the District 5 Foundation, to talk to you more about the foundation's work and the Memorandum of Understanding and Agreement for this year. Thank you, Lynn.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Ross, board members, and to all of our community members who are out there listening to us. Once again, it is my pleasure to speak to you on behalf of the District 5 Foundation. The foundation is greatly appreciative of the support the district has provided over the years through the Memorandum of Agreement and much more. I would like to express a special thank you to Amanda Taylor and her office. We realize just how much help Amanda, Sharon, Barrett, and especially Sandra provide the foundation this past summer during what we'll call the cyber event. You don't realize how many resources are stored in and available through the district computers until you can no longer access them. Luckily, we were able to go old school and pull off our fall fundraiser that this summer we were in the process of marketing when we couldn't access all that information. So we did. We went old school, and luckily we were able to net almost $7,000 for student research grants that will be distributed very soon, and almost $2,000 for our snack pack program. For everyone who may not be familiar with the foundation, our mission is to enhance the educational experiences of School District 5 of Lexington and Richland counties by building awareness and raising funds to support innovative programs, initiatives, and other needs of students, teachers, and staff. We would not be able to accomplish this mission without the support of this board and the district as a whole. This year, we are actively working on putting that mission into actionable steps through strategic planning, hopefully to align with the district's strategic plan. We look forward to continuing to support students, staff, and the surrounding communities in 2026. Please mark your calendars for our second annual Springfest and Kickball Tournament coming up Saturday, March the 28th at Dutch Fork High School. We're looking forward to another great turnout of all of our schools. We also already have a date for our fall fundraiser. It's going to be Saturday, October the 17th. We invite everyone to come out and participate in these events. We also invite you or school board members to any of our foundation meetings. Our next one is coming up this Thursday at 8 o'clock at the district office. Hope to see some of you there. So again, thank you for the support to the foundation through this memorandum of agreement and everything else you provide us. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions? All right, thank you. We do have a motion on the floor, and it's been properly second. All those in favor? And the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That takes us to first reading of proposed revisions to board policy GBEB, staff conduct. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve first reading of proposed revisions to board policy GBEB, staff conduct per Exhibit K.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion or any questions? All those in favor? And the motion carries 6-0. That moves us to number 16, third and final reading of proposed revisions to board policy KE, public concerns and complaints, shown in Exhibit L. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the third and final reading of the proposed revisions to Board Policy KE, Public Concerns and Complaints, Exhibit L.
Do I have a second?
I have an amendment. I'd like to amend the motion to approve the changes that I submitted for policy KE.
Second.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share. First of all, I think the policy we got did have the purpose added back, correct? The one in the packet?
I didn't hear your question.
The one in the packet had the purpose for the policy added back. Okay, so that was one of the changes that I made. The other one was to include a statement after the list of teacher, principal, et cetera, to say parents/guardians and the public are encouraged to present their concerns, starting with the person per above with the most direct responsibility based on the nature of the concern. This will ensure the most expeditious resolution. The reason I suggested that is because not everything starts with a teacher. I mean, if you have a concern that something's wrong in the hallway at a school or something like that. So that was just the reason for adding that, to start with the most relevant. And then they also added, the superintendent will forward request to escalate a matter to the board chair, who will put the matter on the agenda for the next available board meeting. At this meeting, the board will vote on whether or not to hear the matter. If the vote board votes to hear the matter, the hearing will be scheduled the following regular board meeting. If the matter involves personnel or contractual matters, the hearing may be conducted in executive session as permitted by state FOIA laws. All votes will be in public. That's actually from the old policy, so I was recommending that we added that back. And then this one I think is really important, so if you guys want to piecemeal it, I mean, I would really suggest we put this in here. Complaints regarding library or instructional materials will be processed in accordance with policy KEC, library/media material selection. That's not in there, and I looked at a lot of other school boards' policies, and they do have that in there now that that policy KEC has been changed. Just to clarify that if your complaint's about that, it needs to go through policy KEC and not this one. And then just to add a statement that all representatives of the community at any time, any member of the community has the right to present any concerns to one or more board members. Board members will refer all such concerns to the superintendent for resolution. If, in the opinion of any board member, the issue should be referred to the entire board, the board member will request the issue to be added to the agenda at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. The board chair may elect to add the issue to the agenda or require a board vote to determine whether or not the issue will be heard by the board. And I think those are our changes really just to kind of clarify the policy and ensure that members of the public understand the role of the board.
Okay. Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, I'm looking at the previous policy and then at the one that's for the third and final reading, and I'm trying to listen to all that you're saying. To be honest with you, I would need to have all that printed. I'd have to digest that more. As a board policy, there's just so much more information that if I had it in writing and.
I did send it to everyone. It may have been lost in the email, and unfortunately, when the board packet came out, it's in there now, but it wasn't.
I'm just
in the
saying
packet originally.
Okay, well, I'll be honest with you, some of the stuff that you said sounded pretty neat, some of it, but I would have to look at it and really study it before I could vote for it, just being honest.
I have a question. So we did, some people did send in thoughts and suggestions as it related to this policy. So could y'all explain maybe why some pieces were taken or not taken? Maybe that'll help.
And that's a good question, Ms. Snipes, because I know that I really liked the comment that was eliminated, and I guess that was a motion last board meeting, about anyone who defames a staff member, I really felt like that was a show of support for our teachers and our staff, because they're taking a lot of grief a lot of the times. I know it really doesn't change the situation. If it's in there or not, anybody can sue anybody there can be legal action against anybody for either way. But I do like the idea that there's a statement in there that demonstrates that the board supports our staff, our district office folks, our teachers, and everybody who deals with kids. And I think if it's in there, if a parent's looking it up, like you were saying, a policy, the purpose of the policy, I think if that statement is in there, it demonstrates that we as a board do support them, so.
I understand.
So where are we at?
So,
What are we voting on?
my question is, Ms. Huddle made an amendment to the motion to add in her changes, and then my follow-up question was just, how did we decide whose changes to incorporate?
I can
Because we
answer that.
emailed them, but,
Well, I think each would have to be made as a motion to go through. So I think we have to deal with Ms. Huddle's, her motion first before we discuss the other
well, and
potential
that's
changes.
fine, I don't have to go into conversation about them, but I thought, since she made the motion to add them in and they were sent in advance, it might be helpful as we consider the motion to know how the administration decided whose feedback they would take and why, like, was there a
I can
process?
answer that, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So the only thing that we added was the purpose. We did not get into the policy itself because there were a lot of different interpretations and visions. So the answer is no one's additions were added. We would, if it comes to the policy, we believe that that should be added by motion at this place. So we included all of your feedback in the packet, but we did not add anything to the policy because we believe that should be added by motion. It was motion that took it out, and we believe it should be motion that put it in. The only thing that was added was a purpose statement that was suggested, but nothing into the policy.
So my question, that was a lot that you said, so I don't, as far as the amendment, I'm not sure I caught everything, but there was a lot of it that kept referring to at the next board meeting. And that's where I'm concerned about having that kind of specific prescriptive language in there, because there's no way to predict what scenario we're going to be not any board would be facing at that point to lock it into the next meeting. So I would not be comfortable with adding that kind of stuff.
I just wanted to say, in terms of appeals in front of the board, we do have, and Dr. Turner and Dr. Harris, correct me if I'm wrong, if a parent or a student has a complaint that needs to come to the board, there is a policy that governs how that comes to the board at the next meeting. This is for the general public. So if someone who doesn't have a child in the school may not, I mean, there's, I don't know under what they would be appealing to the board, but there are policies for parents and for students. That's a separate policy that does have that language in by the next meeting that is heard. So I think our goal here is to, by looking at the model policy, it was how do we rectify systematically? So just understanding that whether if I'm an employee, I have a grievance policy that I can use. If I'm a student, I have a student policy I can use, or I can use this. If I'm a parent, I have a parent policy I can use, or I can use this. But if I'm neither one of those, I can use this. But I don't want to confuse those and let people know there are multiple ways by your board policy to get to this body.
Do we have other questions around? Yeah, go ahead.
If we vote to approve the policy that's been presented, I mean, while it's in stone, so to speak, it's subject to change at any point in time that the board decides to change it, right?
I guess we can bring it back up
In
as
other
an
words,
agenda item.
if somebody brings up something and at a later date and says, I would like to make a motion or something like that, that we can, it's not like it can't be revisited, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I think what's hard right now, and I can only speak for self in my confusion here, is the thought that we were going to send these, and then maybe some of them would be added if they made sense, and then we would approve it in that format, is what I thought was happening initially, but obviously I do understand why we didn't do it that way. However, in this moment, it is hard to assess which pieces of various policy makes the most sense without taking it piece by piece, as opposed to a blanketed motion. Ms. Huddle, in your feedback too, as you went through it, you talked about how, maybe this piece you felt like was most pertinent, so maybe we piecemeal it, but the motion doesn't read like that either. So, so I guess we'll just take the original amendment to the motion and then go from there if you want to make other adjustments based on how that emotion falls. And then we can have other discussion about other people's changes if they want. Mr. Herring?
Ms. Huddle, would you consider making each of your statements a separate motion?
I would.
Just for clarity.
Okay,
I think that would be so much
Okay,
better.
so I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Okay. I move to amend the proposed revisions to policy KE to add, following the list of bullets, parents/guardians and the public are encouraged to present their concerns, starting with the person per above with the most direct responsibility based on the nature of the concern. This will ensure the most expeditious resolution.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion that's been properly second. All those in favor? Okay, and the motion carries 5-1? 5-0. Ms. Scully is abstaining.
I move, under the paragraph that starts complaints regarding discrimination, at the end of that paragraph, I move to amend the proposed changes to policy KE to add, complaints regarding library or instructional materials will be processed in accordance with policy KEC, library/media materials selection.
Second.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Okay. We have a policy with that already, correct?
We do, but the reason why I suggested adding it there was if you look, let me read the beginning of that paragraph, so this makes sense. Complaints regarding discrimination, harassment, or retaliation will be processed according to policy AC.
Right.
Non-discrimination, equal opportunity. Staff member grievances will be processed in accordance with policy
Yeah.
GBK. So the purpose of this, I think, as Dr. Ross was alluding to, is to point out this is not a catch-all. We have these other things. So I think that for the same reasons, we should make it clear that complaints regarding library or instructional materials must follow the other policy.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question? So
can.
are you skipping the second longer paragraph?
Yeah, I'm doing them in order that I preference.
Things that you
I'll
take.
come back to that.
Okay. All right, do we have any additional questions on the second amendment? All right, all those in favor? And you're abstaining again? All right.
Okay. As representatives of the community, at any time, any member of the community has the right to present any concern to one or more board members. Board members will refer all such concerns to the superintendent for resolution. If, in the opinion of any board member, the issue should be referred to the entire board, the board member will request the issue to be added to the agenda of the next regularly scheduled board meeting. The board chair may elect to add the issue to the agenda or require a board vote to determine whether or not the issue will be heard by the board.
Second.
So it's not saying it's going to be on the agenda, it's saying you can ask for it to be on the agenda, and then the board chair can decide, is it on the agenda, or are we gonna have a vote to put it on the agenda?
Put all the pressure on me. Mr. Satterfield
Well,
has
but I guess my concern with what you read, at least for what I remember what you read, was if board can get involved with complaints and grievances. In other words, my understanding with this was there's an emphasis on you got to start where the problem is instead of the board getting involved. I don't think the board has any role. If we're supposed to be in a quasi-judicial role, so that if it comes to us after it's gone through the channels, I'm just saying, I'm a little nervous. Well, I'm very nervous about the idea of the board taking upon themselves, because I get phone calls like the rest of you do, and I always say, no, you need to talk to the teacher, you need to talk to the school.
Yeah.
I don't think the board
Just
should
to
be
clarify, I
involved.
believe this language came from the old policy, so I didn't write it. But the other issue is if you don't put that somewhere in here, the board's not even in here. The whole purpose of it is to establish a vision for the board receiving complaints. The bullets don't go to the board.
Well, we're too close to get into an argument here. But this doesn't, I don't see this as, this is the board's vision on how the district should handle complaints. This should not be how the board thinks they should be involved.
Okay.
That's just my.
I get that, but we were elected by the taxpayers to represent the entire community. And as Dr. Ross said, we do have a process for parents, we do have a process for staff, and we have a process for teachers, students and parents. What is the process if the superintendent doesn't bring it to the board? You know, if we follow this process and the superintendent says, nah, I don't think it's a problem, but we have a bunch of people in the community that think it's a problem, and we want to discuss it, what's the process?
Mr. Satterfield, let me just say, we are not close to getting in an argument. We are collaborating and sharing thoughts and ideas collectively. But Dr. Ross wanted to chime in. I'm gonna let him respond and then move along the table.
This is a point of clarification. The policy does allow progressively higher levels of review to the board, as I read that. Is that not correct?
Can you say that again, Dr. Ross?
The statement was that this policy does not allow a matter to come to the board. But the policy, I'm looking at it, that's the last bullet point, is the board, as the progressively higher levels of it. I guess one of the concerns I have in the language is that if the complaint is an administrative action, I do worry about what the question is that would come before the board. So there are other governing policies on how things are maintained. If I do have a complaint that's discriminatory in nature, how that comes to the board is different. If I have a complaint about the grass, how that comes to the board would be different on how it would come from it if it's a student complaint.
I see where you're talking about.
I just think this does allow a level beyond the superintendent, but understand that at that point, how the superintendent brings it to you may be governed by other policies. So I just didn't want to confuse the public by saying that this stops at the superintendent. The last bullet of the progressive levels does go to the board, but you must go through the paths that your board policy outlines that way.
And you're right, Dr. Ross, that was my mistake, because when I added this, I took that out because it didn't make sense. I did put these in order. I would like to have it in here to make it clear that we are open to the public, but, I understand some people's reservations with it.
All right, so are there any more questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
And Ms. Huddle, you are the longest serving member on this board so far, and I think you would know this policy better. Doesn't our school board member conduct policy tell us that we are supposed to report those concerns to the superintendent? So I feel like we, at least in that part, we're covered, and also the hierarchy of where it goes is covered.
Mrs. Scully, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think any previous confusion that we may have had to this point on that policy, on complaints, on the procedures, I would say that paragraph is probably a big reason why. So I would recommend not including that. And if it's in the existing policy, then that's probably why there's been confusion to this point, because it does seem to put emphasis on the public bringing concerns to board members and not going the appropriate route. And it almost makes it sound like, when you were reading it, it made me think that the right process was to go to the board member, and that shouldn't happen at all. And not having it in there doesn't mean that they can't or that they won't. They certainly will, but it almost makes it sound too, if you're reading it, that is where you start. And so I think it adds to confusion rather than creates clarity. So it should be taken out for that reason. And then there was another part of that paragraph that almost, the language about if a board member feels it necessary to elevate it, then they're required, like that almost puts the discretion, makes it sound like the discretion is up to me on how to handle their complaint, like to make that decision and judgment at that point. So I think that makes it more problematic, and probably is the reason why, if our current policy has created confusion, that paragraph might be the reason. That's my comment.
Okay.
Mr. Satterfield.
Mr. Satterfield.
It's pretty bad when I got to call my own name out.
I wasn't ignoring you. I really
Are we finished
didn't
with
see
Ms.
you.
Huddle's motions?
Well, we still have to vote on it.
Oh, we still have to vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, because I want to add see if I can
Your
get a
2
motion
cents?
to add my paragraph.
Okay, well, before we vote on Ms. Huddle's motion, I just want to say that I'm at a crossroads here between what Ms. Huddle said, for me, might be a little too much, but I think what we currently have, I'm not gonna say it's not enough, but, maybe it's too in the weeds, because I was gonna say, better clarifications of what these processes look like, but maybe we don't have to do all of that. I'll just wait and see what other people's feedback is, and then we can decide if we need to circle back to it, and it will depend, I guess, too, on how this next vote goes. So all of those in favor of Mrs. Hutto's third, I think, amendment? All opposed? All right, and then that motion fails 2-4. All right, Mr. Satterfield.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. I'd like to make a motion to add back the sentence that was deleted regarding anyone who defames a district staff member or damages a person's professional reputation, whether before students or any third party, may be subject to legal action brought by the staff member. And I don't know that I need to express my concerns any further because I did.
We gotta get a
already.
second first.
I'll say.
Okay, now, go ahead.
Well, I think I've already done that. I think that in today's world where people are attacking left and right and and it's not just at school boards or meetings, or it's in the community, it's in politics, our nation, and that was part of the reason that I asked for a prayer for our nation, is because we seem to be choosing sides a lot of times, and people are just feel free to attack folks and their credibility and their reputation. And when you're in education, I can tell you from all my 33 years in education, if somebody says that about you, it's there. You can't change it. You can't erase it. And the one thing we don't want to do is put our teachers or our district staff or anybody that works for schools in that precarious predicament. So I think that having that statement in there demonstrates that this board supports our staff, that we support one another, that we don't want to have anybody have to go through that nonsense. And that's my reasoning for the motion.
Ms. Huddle?
I know Mr. Herring emailed us, and that's in the packet, that he also wanted to add that back. So I did a little bit of research. For anyone listening, on our policy manual is pretty cool. You can go in there and put a word in there, and it'll show you every policy that has that word and where it is and how it's used. There are 22 other policies that mention complaints. And I won't go over all of them, but there's 4 key ones. CFA, how principals will handle complaints. GBAA, how complaints of sexual discrimination and harassment will be handled. GBK, staff concerns, complaints, and grievances. And JII, students' concerns, complaints, and grievances. That wording about legal actions in none of those. So it concerns me that the one place we would put it is the public. The public who funds the public schools, and say, well, you better be careful, because I agree with Mr. Satterfield. I don't think that we want to invite defamation of our staff or anyone like that. And I wouldn't even have a problem if it said something like that, about not using that words, but just, keep your complaint on reasonable grounds. No personal attacks won't be tolerated, that kind of thing. But when you go out here and you actually talk about legal action and you use the words legal action, I think it has a chilling effect, and I don't think that the one place we want to do it is with the public policy. If we're going to do it, let's put it on all of our policies about complaints. And then the last thing I just want to add is I don't think it's even needed, because putting it out there gives the impression that the school district is going to take the legal action, and I don't think that would ever be our intention. And individuals are free to take legal action if they want to. So I would just discourage us from picking this one place to put that. And if we have concerns about people leveling complaints that are unfair or poorly worded, that we maybe rephrase it around that, but not to talk about legal action. And I want to put this in the minutes about that. Since I knew this was coming, I went ahead and wrote up what I just said.
All right, Dr. Ross and then Mr. Satterfield.
I just want to speak to that point of why it's not located in all of those policies. Those policies represent actions of employees and staff. There's recourse for staff for false statements, defamed or liable within our current policy. So again, there's multiple policies that overlap, but if any one of those comments were made about a staff, by a staff member, there is recourse. Where there is no recourse is with the public. And the only recourse is that employee taking personal action. We're asked a lot, what defense do we have? More and more our staff are being accosted, cursed out, yelled at. It's abuse, and they're asking us what protections we have. I don't think they're aware that they have these protections. They have those in the other cases. If I do it, if staff does it, there are very clearly lined out protections for those employees. The only place that it does not exist. And so I would go even further to think not only do we recommend that language be added back that was added by the School Boards Association, I think we also need a communication plan from our district to show our employees that there are protections for them. I believe in what Madison said in the Federalist Papers. No power should be concentrated in anyone's hands. You should always have checks and balances. To give any one entity total control of another is not what our democratic process is about. I believe this is necessary to maintain that checks and balance, to ensure that all of us are on an equal playing field when it comes to these protections. So I recommend this language, but I think we as a district need to go further with a communication plan so that all our employees know that they are not subject to that type of abuse if it should arise.
So is the administration going to advise staff to file lawsuits against?
When asked, as we currently are, and I'll let Dr. Turner speak to it so that I don't represent what comes to me, you can represent what comes to you. They ask, what recourse do I have? We can then point to this policy. We're not advising them to take any legal action, but we're saying this is what you can do. Right now, we are advising them, you know you can take legal action. It would make sense if it's there. They know what recourse they have if an administrator does it. They know what recourse they have if a colleague does it. They don't know what recourse they have if someone in the public does it.
Can I, Ms. Snipes, can I speak one more time? You listening?
Who want to talk?
I went to the, as you all know, recently I went to the legislative conference down down in Charleston, and we went through this long, arduous process about proposed legislation, and there were probably 300, 400 school board members in there, and they go through policies or plans or proposed legislation or things that they want to propose very carefully, and they incorporate their attorneys. They don't just do it arbitrarily. If somebody says, that's a good idea, they go through that process. So if they have added with this in there, I do have confidence. Can we ask Mr. Bradley, since he is present, and for his
That's what I
opinion?
was planning to do, but then you wanted to ask me the question.
Mr. Bradley, could you help us
Can you
out
come
a
on
little bit?
down?
Give us your professional opinion, please.
I'm not exactly sure what the question is you're asking me, so if you could rephrase it, I'll be happy to tell you.
You're the board chair.
Well, let me restate it, and then you tell me if I got it right. How about that? The policy that we're talking about, the public concerns and complaints, omits certain language from the School Boards Association recommended policy, which indicates that a lawsuit for defamation could be brought by a staff member against a member of the public. We are debating whether or not to add that language, to have that language in our policy following the School Boards Association's recommendation, or to remove the language regarding a potential defamation lawsuit. Have I stated it properly? Excellent. So first of all, I don't know that there's any legal answer of what is right and what is wrong. Either one is appropriate. Second, the mere fact that you write in your policy that a staff member can sue someone for defamation doesn't change the law at all, okay? If someone has an action for defamation, they can bring it or not bring it, and no policy this school board would pass would change that, because that's a law that would need to be passed by either the common law of the state from the South Carolina Supreme Court or the General Assembly. Okay, we just don't have the power to give people the right to sue for one thing or another. All right. As a result, the only legal effect that adding that language to your policy would have would be sort of a policy statement saying we are supporting the rights of our staff members to sue the public. Okay, it would be of no binding effect whatsoever, but if you felt as a board it was appropriate to include language saying, you know, we're restating the fact that if an employee is defamed by a member of the public, they have a right to bring an action, then there's nothing wrong with saying that, but it doesn't change the law. One possible reason you might want to say it, as Mr. Satterfield pointed out, was to support your employees. I think Dr. Ross talked about that. One reason you might not want to say it is, as Ms. Huddle pointed out, we don't say it anywhere else, and we certainly don't want to treat the public worse than we treat our employees. A good point Dr. Ross made was, well, the employees have a recourse within the system against anybody within the system, because there's a system put in place to resolve employee problems and student problems and parent problems, but there's not one to put in place for the public. But it has no legal effect to put it in there. It doesn't change the law at all. But if you want to say it as a policy statement of what the board supports, that would be the only effect. It changes nothing about the law for you to put in there that a staff member can sue a member of the public. If you put it in there, they can do it. If you don't put it in there, they can do it. So it doesn't make any difference at the end of the day to what the substantive law is or whether staff members have those protections. It would only be a statement from the board by passing the policy that, you know, it's reiterating that right, which is granted by the South Carolina common law. So that's a long-winded, not lawyer answer, other than to say it has no substantive legal effect on employee rights.
That's okay. You went a long way around to get to that same point, but that's what lawyers do.
I did. I plead guilty to that. What other questions can I answer for anyone?
Well, let me ask you a
regarding
question. Let's say that you're a parent and you're looking for policies, because that's what the parent would do if they were looking to file a complaint or something. If that statement was in there, you think you'd be more inclined to be accurate and not go out in the community and land blast and tell everybody you knew about something that you didn't know if it was true? Because that's what happens. You know, people get in various settings and situations where they just tell the world because nobody feels like they're being held accountable. But if I was, I ask you as a parent, what would you feel, or what would you think when you read that?
Well, I am a parent, so that's easy for me to imagine.
Okay.
Second, and not to argue, my guess is that no parent is ever going to read this. There might be some people who will look at it, but my expectation is if people have complaints, they're probably not going to go looking among the policies for how they register them. They may. I'm not saying you can't. It's really easy to do. The district's gone out of its way to make it easy for people to do this. I just don't think people will. I think they'll just register their complaint whether the policy is there or not. All right, so I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying I don't really think the fact that it's in the policy or not in the policy is going to change what people do. Third, assuming that I was the parent and I read that policy, it wouldn't make any difference to me. You just picked me because I'm a lawyer, so I'm not really that worried about it. I'm going to tell the truth anyway on it. That may sound incongruous with a lawyer, but my point is I already understand what those rules are. I don't need the policy to tell me. But that's not really the point I think you're making. The point is, if this would dissuade people from making reckless statements about our staff, isn't that a good reason to put it in there? My answer is, I don't think that it will, because I don't think people will look at it. I do agree with this idea, though, that if someone looked at it, it might dissuade them from telling lies. As you guys know, I deal with a lot of these kinds of things that happen with the district. People say all kinds of crazy accusations, and I agree that it's a problem with our interconnected society that everyone believes their opinion is important, useful, and in some cases even factual. And it is absolutely detrimental to what we're trying to do here, which the bottom line at the end of the day is educate children. That's right. So I agree 100% with the sentiment. I'm not sure that I think it would be that effective, but if someone were to read the policy, I think it would probably at least make them think twice about it, and perhaps that would be a policy reason to include it.
Thank you.
What other questions?
Mr. Herron, Mr. Scully? Mr. Herron?
I don't have a question for you, Ward. I just had a comment. I was originally the one that actually brought this up, so I'll be brief. But I go back to the citation of the other policies that don't have this, and it makes me wonder, then why did the School Board Association decide to put it in this one? I would assume most of our policies are at least somewhat influenced by the model policies by the School Board Association, and they've been vetted, like Mr. Satterfield said, they've been put through committee and lawyers have looked at them. People who know school law better than we do have looked at them. So if they chose very deliberately to put it in here, I feel like there must have been a reason. And I think I've shown, I'm totally willing to add some things to the policy, but I think taking things away from it really could be problematic.
Mr. Scully?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Bradley that I don't think the public or any parents this would have any material impact or effect on what they do, what the public does. And I think based on what we've experienced and all seen over the last 12 months related to this issue, had it not been for that, I would probably not have a position on this at all. I would probably abstain and let the vote go whatever, however it goes. But because of what we've seen over the last year as it relates to attacks on our employees, that makes the decision for me. Just seeing the negative, I don't think this statement would have curtailed any of that at all. However, what the people who do read that are the staff and the employees. And I think they're the ones that get the message, and they're the ones who will feel support from that. Because I think what we've seen over the last year is that those types of statements have had a detrimental effect on our staff. And I think it's unquestionable. So putting it in there simply for that reason alone makes all the difference in the world to me. And outside of that, I agree. I just don't, no parent's going to see this, that they're not going to read, by and large. The vast majority, the average parent does not read board policy. I never did until I got on the board. So I don't think there's going to be any kind of chilling effect from that standpoint. I also don't think that even if it being in there would actually curtail it, but it sends the people who see it are the staff, and that's who the message is for, and I think that's why we have it. So that's why I will be voting for it.
So, Mr. Scully, I don't necessarily agree with your comments, but it does raise the question, is this the place for this sentence?
Yeah, I do, because it's for the place of it is for, I mean, the public, and that's what we've seen if you look back over the last year. And I agree with Dr. Ross's point that for it not being in the staff policy and the employee policy and all the other complaint policies, it is appropriate to be in this one rather than and/or without those, because this one is specifically, that's where the staff, that's where the complaints against staff come from, is by and large the public. And so it gives them the assurance and the reassurance, rather, that there is an avenue. It doesn't change the law at all. It doesn't give them rights. It doesn't take away rights from anybody, but it just gives them that sense of reassurance. And so I think it's appropriate based on where it's at in the public concerns and complaints policy, because that's where the employee is going to go and look for those types of for issues dealing with that. And so I think it's appropriate, but that's just my opinion.
Do you have other? Go ahead.
I'd like to call the question.
That's where I was going, because
Does
this
that
is
need-
where we are.
Does that need a vote?
No, I was just going to go ahead and say we have Ms. Huddle's motion on the floor.
Actually,
No, Ms.
this
Huddle's.
was, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Satterfield.
You didn't see me. I
Oh,
had
I
a
did, I'm
question
sorry.
because this did come from the School Board Association.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bradley, have we not found some model policies that you disagree with? But I'm not saying you disagree with this one, but I'm just saying, just because it came from the School Board Association, does that mean that it's the best policy it could be? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I would say this. In general, the School Board Association spends a lot of time trying to get this right. They come at it from the standpoint of being the Association of School Boards, and the purpose of this is to somewhat standardize policies, but also to make it easy for school boards to have good policies, right? So their goal is to try and make it be a good policy. I would say that we've had problems with some of the School Board Association's policies complying with some laws. We've discussed those in the past. I won't necessarily go into them. Sometimes the policy can't preempt what the Supreme Court says or what the Attorney General says or what the legislature says. I don't know that I would ever say to anyone on this board, you should just do this because the School Board Association says you should. That's not what you're elected to do. You're elected to use your judgment on behalf of the taxpayers to do what's best for the school district, including primarily the students, also the parents, also the people that work here, and the taxpayers, and citizens. So I wouldn't say for you to do it just because the School Board Association says to do it. I would say that in general, almost every policy this board has is in some way adopted from the School Board Association policies. They wouldn't all be word for word, but most of them are, and they usually work pretty well. But there are some times, honestly, where I disagree with what they have to say, and I think they're incorrect, and we've addressed those if we've come across them. And I don't think this one is necessarily correct or incorrect. It's just a question of whether you put that statement in there. And some people would say it's in support of your staff, which I would also agree have been subject to completely unfounded and slanderous attacks in more than one situation that I've dealt with over the last year, which is absolutely scurrilous. And I have no tolerance for it. But that was more than anyone asked me, so I'll be quiet and respond to any other questions someone may have.
Point of order, just on the process, on the motion.
Okay.
Is a vote in favor of on the motion on the floor, removing that language? It's striked out of this policy, or are
Because-
we adding
So at the last meeting, there was a vote to take it out, which is why it struck out. And Mr. Satterfield wants to make a motion to put it back on.
okay, so a vote in favor of the motion
Yes.
adds it back to.
Adds it back. That is correct. And then I'm just going to ask one question before the vote, which is, did we pull this directly from the School Boards Association, or did we just take a piece of it? And I'm asking for I'm asking that for clarification of, because it seems like some of the concern with the placement of it is, whether the board is trying to shun people from giving their complaints. And so could there be more clarity on sort of who is bringing, like the district, if I go out and harass Dr. Turner and, lie on her or whatever, and she decides to sue me, Dr. Turner, an individual, is suing me, not the district office. And I know that although it says brought by the staff member, I think because it's in our policy for anybody, if somebody in the public does decide to look at it, I think it would be good to have clarification on who is bringing forth a lawsuit. That's just a separate point. That's not what we're voting on tonight, but I'm just putting it out there that would make me feel a little bit better about it. And this is weird because initially I voted in favor of this and Scott voted against it, and now we're swapped. And I'm not against it, I get it. It was helpful to have you, Ward, come and kind of explain that perspective as well. I just think I would feel a little more settled if we fleshed out who is bringing forth this lawsuit and how that works, as opposed to leaving it up to interpretation. But that's just a general thought.
But to answer your question, this was verbatim the School Boards Association. We added nothing, took nothing away.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you so much. Okay, finally, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Satterfield to add back the language regarding being subject to legal action, and it has been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion carries 4-2. That moves us. Yes, thank you. That moves us to the approval of the 25-26 general fund amendments as shown in Exhibit M.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Coming to the lectern is our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Heather Tucker, as we bring forth three amendments that we would like to add. These will be coming from our fund balance to take care of the remainder of the year, which would be our Tier 2, which is our tutoring services, the concerns about behavioral conduct, which was our 8 behavioral coaches, and then funding for the coordinator of technology for cybersecurity. So Ms. Tucker, if you want to just talk about the process.
I'm gonna take a motion first, please. Is that okay?
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Do I have a motion to approve the general fund amendments?
I make a motion to approve the 2025-26 general fund amendments as seen in Exhibit M.
Do I have a second?
I would like to make an amendment to that, Madam Chair.
Well, we've got to get a second, and then I guess you can make your amendment before she does her presentation.
Yes. I move to amend the motion to note that this is a first reading and that a public budget workshop and second reading are required before this change to the budget is passed by the board.
Second.
Will you repeat the motion?
I move to amend the motion to note that this is a first reading and that a public budget workshop and second reading are required before this change to the budget is passed by the board.
Do you want to comment before Ms. Tucker gives her presentation, or, okay? He's asking for an explanation.
Being that this is a budget item, it's just a straight approval on the action agenda. Everything, to my knowledge, we usually have to have a first and second reading.
I'm not aware of, this is not the budget we're approving. By state law, but the overall general fund budget must have a first, second, and must have a general, we have to put in the paper 15 days ahead of time to have the public hearing. The board can change and add to its budget. This is more of an assignment that we're asking for. This is not a budget. These are actual programs that we have presented to the board that we ask approval for. Ms. Tucker, if you would like to speak to that.
So this would not be So right now, our general fund budget is $250 million. We're not asking to add to that. We're asking to assign fund balance to carry these out through the rest of this year. And then if the board were to want to continue these programs throughout this fiscal year, that would be part of our next year's budget. So these would not be.
Ms. Huddle?
Okay, I'm confused. The budget will go up, won't it? It's just the source of the revenue will come from fund balance.
Would come from fund balance.
So the budget would increase by $1.5 million, 1.450.
Yes, but we're not asking to increase the budget.
You're not asking to get for more funding. You're not asking to increase the millage rate, but the budget, when you do your budget schedules, are you not going to change the budget to show, won't the new number add up to?
No,
So
it would not.
where's the,
Can I make a clarification? I think we're confusing budget with actuals. Our budget is our plan. Our plan has already been presented. It has been presented multiple times. We had a budget book. This is not, we're not doing budgeting. We're doing a transfer here. So I don't want to confuse my CFO. We're not changing our budget items. We've already presented that. What we're actually doing is implementing a transfer of $1.45 million from fund balance to take care of current expenditures. Because to that definition, anytime we have added a temporary teacher or we paid the subs more, remember we increased the pay for subs, we do a bonus or anything, that would be, you could be accused of changing the budget. The plan that we passed never changed. It's the implementation of the actuals that we're dealing with.
In other words, we're not using unapproved funds. The funds have already been approved.
okay, I have a question. If we spend everything in the existing budget and we spend this, we will be spending more. So this is not a transfer. A transfer is from one expense line to another expense line. You cannot transfer from revenue to expense. The budget is going to go up if we approve this,
Unless we find expenditures to offset.
which be another decision. But the vote before the board is to increase the budget and to use the fund balance to do that.
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Bainham's point is, shouldn't we have a second reading to do that and publicize it to the public, just like we do an original budget? Because this isn't a transfer. This is increasing our budget. We're just going to use fund balance to do it, but we're still increasing our budget.
Do you have a response to that before I take Mr. Satterfield's question? And then I think I saw a hand to my left.
So I think I see both sides of this. And in fact, Dr. Ross and I had this conversation the other day about, was this truly going to increase our budget, or were we going to assign fund balance? I think we have some opportunities within our current budget where we could find some expenditure offsets, because I don't think what we want to do is truly increase our budget number of $250 million. That's where we don't want to see that increase. We have some opportunities, whether it's vacancies, whether it's some opportunities with other programs, and I think we need to look for those efficiencies to offset this, because in theory, we don't want to go, or in actuality, we don't want to go over our $250 million budget. The uncertainty, and I think this is where we originally started talking about a budget amendment, was that we had thought we would have our state allocation by this point of what our allocation would look like based on the 45-day numbers, and we don't have that. We won't have that from the state until January 20th. We were hoping to bring an entire budget amendment based on that, but because now we won't see that until January 20th, these are programs that wanted to be implemented at the beginning of this semester, and so we were looking for some offsets to cover that. And so I think that's probably where some of this confusion, Dr. Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had been talking about a budget amendment based on our 45-day numbers, hoping that we would have that information in December, and the State Department has pushed that off a couple of times now. We should see those numbers in our state allocation, which we would get on January 20th. And so we anticipate losing funding from the 45 days, again, not understanding what to the extent of that. So based on these additional programs, we wanted to use assigned fund balance, but we need to look for those efficiencies throughout our current budget so that our budgeted actual numbers do not go over the $250 million.
Mr. Satterfield?
Okay, let me see if I understand this. So really, the money that we are using for this program is coming out of the fund balance right now?
Correct.
That's what you're requesting. But when we get to next year's budget, you hope to be able to find that in next year's budget?
We would like to be able to find that in this current year's budget right now.
Oh, the current year's budget, okay. All right, my second question is, Dr. Ross, can you, because there is a positive side to this. I know we're looking at every nickel and dime sometimes, maybe a million nickels and dimes here. But Dr. Ross, could you tell us, this is for Tier 2 academic interventions. Can you kind of explain to us, is this for middle school, high school? How will this be used?
Ms. McCaskill?
This would be for 1st through 12th grade, so it would be for all grades, beginning with 1st grade, and it would impact ELA and math for grades 1 through 8, and then all 4 content areas with an EOC focus for high schools, and then there'll also be study sessions for AP students as well.
The reason I ask that question is because most members on this board, I think every board member, has expressed academic concerns. And I know that I have been a proponent of, and I'm a former football coach, so we pay all these coaches lots of very good money. We pay them well to do their job. If we're about academics, then we should be putting as much emphasis on academics. And for what you were just sharing, I'm hoping we do more. As I said before, we should not be giving teachers nickels and dimes to stay after school to tutor and to help coach kids academically. So I hope that this is just the beginning. I don't care if it costs another $10 million. If we can find a way, Dr. Ross does his superintendent's report every board meeting, and we look at the numbers. We look at middle school math, which is always the most glaring, but we see them across the board, the academic issues that we're trying to deal with. And our job as a board is to improve our academics. That's our job. And if you're making the effort and making the recommendations to move toward that in that direction and paying teachers what they should be paid to do the extra work, then I'm all for this amount of money, because I'll be honest with you, I don't know that we're not going to. It's kind of like the program we talked about earlier with dual enrollment. I think this program is going to grow. And it's about academics. So I think this is something we should be embracing, and I hope that we'll continue to look for more ways of helping kids do better, do well academically. So I hope you don't mind me asking that question. I know that this is, about budget, a request for a budget amendment, but I think we all need to remind ourselves that the money that we're spending, the investment, if the return is that great, if it's helping that many kids, then we should be all in and be looking for more opportunities and more ways of helping them. So, thank you.
Hold up. Ms. Tucker, when you're putting together the budget every year, and you create it, you get all the costs and expenses, what do you do with the money that's left over?
So the money that's left over goes into our fund balance.
Into fund balance. When you present the budget to us, is fund balance part of that?
We ask for an assignment of fund balance of what we know will be kind of one-time costs, essentially. Positions like what we were just able to hire in the human resources job fair they just had. So some of those positions we ask for kind of one-time money with that assignment of the fund balance to get us through to the next year when those can be budgeted.
Okay. Now, talk to me about the balance sheet. With this transaction, we're taking fund balance on the balance sheet is in the owner's equity section, right? Mm-hmm. And we're assigning it and just moving it up into current liabilities as payables. No change.
So we would not increase our budget. Now, our expenditures, so last year, if you think back about our expenditures last year, we actually went over our budget last year, and it was due to the board approving the one-time bonus for teachers in May that signed their contract on time. So we actually went over our budget based on an approval of the board to use that one-time fund balance to essentially pay that. So our expenditures were over our budget, but that came from assigned fund balance. This year, our assigned fund balance will be used to balance our revenue if we lose money from the state. But we would also use it to fund these items. In actuality, do I see that we're going to spend $1.4 million additional over and above our budget? I think it's going to take some time to ramp some of these things up, and I don't see us going that far over our budget, just based on kind of where we are right now with expenditures. But we would want the board's approval because these items were not in our budget.
They were in the fund balance part of the budget.
That's what we're asking for.
Right. So
That's
the
what we're asking
the money was already approved as part of our fund balance, to be in our fund, like that allocation of the number of dollars in our fund balance was approved.
No.
Now what
No.
we're doing
We
is
would-
moving that from that location and just creating a cost. Now we're moving it from where it was in the fund balance into an expense, basically.
We would essentially be asking for you to approve that as assigned fund balance. So we have our fund balance that's broken up into the non-spendable, assigned, and unassigned. And so we would be asking that the board approve this $1.4 million so we could assign that fund balance to these programs for the remainder of this year.
Right, so you're assigning it. Now they
Correct.
have a line item.
And understanding that there are positions in here that if the board does not approve those in the budget next year, those positions would go away. That these are time-limited positions, which will make them more difficult to fill this year, but understanding that they are not positions that will carry over after June 30th of this year.
That's a good point. What would you do? Hey, and it's probably Dr. Turner. What's the chance that you're not going to be able to fill them this year, or that you would get less qualified people because of them potentially not being reapproved?
The last time we did the time limited positions was when we had the ESSER funds. And so we were able to successfully recruit and hire for those temporary positions. So it's something that we talk about because these are temporary positions, but our goal is to seek to fill them. And what I can reference is the last group of temporary time limited positions, which were ESSER, which were successfully filled.
Okay. And most of these are for the
expectations coaches.
expectation coaches.
It's
Okay,
just the
which
one
is what all the principals at that last meeting, or that meeting two or three meetings ago, when specifically called out and asked. I'll remind the board that they all unanimously said that expectation coaches were, if they could have anything, it would be that. So.
Okay, so last May, June, we approved a budget that was essentially nothing to do with a balance sheet. It was an income statement, right? And expenditures. On the income statement, it had local sources, state sources, and it added up to
$250 million.
right. And the expenses were salaries and office supplies, and it added up to
$250 million.
right. If we approve this tonight, what we are approving is increasing that expense budget to $251,400,000, and you're going to increase the revenue side because now you're going to use fund balance to do that.
To offset that.
Okay. So we are approving, if we approve it, an increase in the annual budget. In the expenses that were approved in the annual budget. Okay, and I want to clarify something else because at a previous meeting, I asked, well, can't we just run over budget? It's just a budget. We don't have to change the budget. And I was told we did have to change the budget because the HR system and the purchasing system and all wouldn't authorize it if we hadn't. So in order to be able to hire these people and spend this money, you're going to have to put it in the budget, correct?
We can run over a budget in salaries, but not for a program.
Okay.
We
Is
would
it-
never not pay somebody if we were over budget.
Right. Okay, but is it normal practice that to get a position approved so that HR can hire it,
Yes.
it does have to be in the
It does
budget?
have to be in the budget.
Okay, so if we approve this tonight, you're going to change the budget for expenses to $251 million, and you're going to change the budget for revenue to $251 million. Okay. Did I also hear that you're worried that when we do get our allocations from the state, we'll actually get less money than what we projected?
I am.
So if that happens, where's that going to be made up?
It would have to come out of fund balance for the rest of this year, or we would have to bring cost-cutting measures back to the board.
Ms. Tucker, do we do a budget amendment every year?
We did not do one last year,
Okay.
and I can't speak to previous.
Can someone tell me, Dr. Ross, do we do a budget amendment regularly? Let me change my question, regularly.
Yes, and we do fund balance allocations regularly.
And we have, during a budget amendment process, have we used fund balance to cover things in the budget amendment?
To be fair, yes, sometimes we use fund balance, sometimes we get our projections and they're rounded up and we have more revenue coming in. Sometimes we have less and we draw from fund balance. I think the biggest piece to understand is that 250 is the budgeted number.
I get that.
Your actuals, you don't spend 250. And even by law, right, I think we got to require that you have to have a holdback of 8.33% of that budgeted number. So to say that we will have over $251 of expenditures is incorrect. We won't have that. $251 million of expenditures is incorrect. We can place that as our top line budget, but that is not what our expenditures will equal to.
So if we've done budget amendments before and we have used fund balance to cover whatever we are making, have we had a budget workshop or hearing in the past to approve that with a first, second, and third reading?
I mean, to clarify, I am not aware of any time that we have ever had a budget amendment to add ongoing expenses. I think the only time we've done that is like a reassignment of fund balance.
I don't see how these are ongoing because they're only for
Oh,
the
they're
rest of the.
ongoing. Okay, so I'm glad that the ESSER thing was brought up because I'm the only person that was on the board and we were told they were temporary and they knew they were temporary and there was no way we were going to keep them. And guess what? We kept them. Okay? So we hire these people, we're keeping them. We all know that. So let's just admit it. It's going to happen. We don't ever hire anybody. And y'all need to go look at the CAFR, or whatever it's called now, the AFR. Go look at the staffing at the back of that thing. The increases that have been made outside of the classroom for the last 10 years while our enrollment has decreased is disgusting. Okay? We need to be hiring people, teachers. If we're worried about discipline, how about smaller class sizes? If we're worried about academics, how about smaller class sizes? We need to be adding teachers. You know, last year, how many 12 positions did we add in the budget that were not teachers? I mean, you know, if we need a technology position, well, let's find some other position we don't need, but we need to quit adding positions that are not teachers. We're here to teach kids.
As a point of order, I think we're supposed to be debating whether or not we have to do this for a budget hearing or not. That was the motion, to have a budget hearing and a first, second, and third reading. We're not supposed to be debating the merits of the motion at
Correct.
this point.
So I'm going to call the question, but before I do that, Ms. Tucker, for the record and for clarification, is your position that we do not need to have this come as a reading according to Mr. Bainum's motion that I can't remember now because of all the other conversation, because this is fund balance and a transfer? I just want to be on the record as to whether or not we have the proper protocol in place.
So we would be asking for the assignment of fund balance.
Yes.
The positions would need to be budgeted. And so that is one that I might need a point of clarification there on making sure that those positions because they would need to be budgeted in order for us to get them onto payroll. And so even though we would be asking for an assignment of fund balance, that's something that I might need to just get a point of clarification on the positions.
I would share with you this, I think, and just correct me if I'm wrong, we're asking for temporary positions now.
Temporary positions.
We're not asking for continuing positions. This gets us through the year, and so does not require a recurring. Now, I will speak to Ms. Huddle's point. We're asking for them now because the teachers and the administrators asked for them at the beginning of the year. So we do believe these should continue, but when they do continue, to Mr. Bainham's point, it must go through first, second reading, it must go through a public hearing. These are temporary. In fact, all of Tier 2, there are no positions in there whatsoever. Those are all supplements for our current teachers so that they can tutor after school.
So, and I'm all for the tutoring piece of it. That's the part out of all these things that I care about the most, because I think that's important so that our students are getting the support that they need. But my question on the table right now, yes or no, is do we need to have multiple readings based on how these funds are being moved? I just don't want to do a vote that's wrong and then we have to correct it. So I just want to get clarification before we take a vote. And this has nothing to do with whether I agree with what we want to do, because I do. I'm just asking.
Is the technology position not included in this?
Oh yeah, all these things are included.
So, excuse my ignorance, but we're gonna hire somebody for estimated salary of $150,000 and let them know you're a temporary employee.
Let me share, right now, we don't have these protections. We're asking for the protections. If the board doesn't want to give it to it, that's fine. I would rather go to the board and say, we tried to find protections for our website, for our cybersecurity. We have been, our principals have been brought out for not enforcing dress code, for not looking at vapes in the bathroom. We're asking for help for here. We've, just to Mr. Satterfield's point, we're trying to pay our teachers extra to tutor after school. We're asking for help. The answer is no. It's a fund balance assignment. It's not our annual budget piece. We don't have to do this. And I'll tell you why. Last year, we brought to you, let's give all staff $1,500 out of fund balance. That was approved unanimously, and we didn't even have a discussion on it. It came up. It didn't have a first or second or third reading. We didn't post it in the newspaper. We didn't take action on it. We added to the budget. We went over budget without any notice. We just added it. So if we can do it then, I don't understand how we can't give this help to our people right now.
Okay.
I was just gonna say real quick, I'm not debating that these aren't needed, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to put down any of these programs. I just wanted to make sure that we're going through the proper channels and we're gonna be able to continue these if these are very important positions and that we're prepared for the future, that's all.
Ms. Snipes, I have a question. What is the annual, we have less than half the year left. So if the annual cost would be double this?
For the Tier 1 tutoring, Ms. McCaskill, the annual cost of the Tier 1 tutoring was double this, correct? Okay.
Which is double?
The tutoring. The annual cost for the technology position is the $150,000. That is the annual cost. And the expectation coaches, I believe that is also the annual cost.
How can you hire 8 people for a whole year for $300,000?
Because they're.
Yeah, this is, and I know Dr. Harris feels this, they don't make a lot of money. And I'm sorry that's the case, but.
So they're not psychologists or
No,
trained?
these are boots on the ground. To find psychologists, to find 8 psychologists to work with our students, you give us the full year and we would struggle with that. We're trying to find people to help supervise students in the halls during
Catch
the
the
cafeteria.
runners.
I want to pay them more, but
Okay. All right. We have an amendment to the motion on the floor from Mr. Bainum to defer the approval of the budget amendments. It's been properly seconded. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion? All opposed? And the motion fails 5-2. Back to the original motion on the floor, which has been made and properly seconded to approve the general fund amendments. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion carries 5-2. 4. Thank y'all. Habit, yes. All right. That moves us to number 18, which we've already voted on, but do believe the administration has a presentation regarding that.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to put for the record, we appreciate the board approving the A&E service of this. There may be some parents of Chapin Elementary that are asking, what is the board doing, or what is the district doing? So we would have put this for your review. Currently, the dismissal at Chapin Elementary School is at 2:30 p.m. You can see here we have a stacking issue on is it Old Bush River Road in front of Chapin Elementary, which also is part of the property for Chapin Intermediate and our bus depot in Chapin. You can see here, this is at 2:20, about 10 minutes before dismissal. That stacking line goes almost as far back to the entrance of the park and Mungo Park. So I'm not sorry, ICRC's park, yeah. Melvin Park, that's correct. And so what you see here is at 2:20, if you swing the drone back around, we have our buses intersecting the car rider lines as they try to run the Chapin routes. So our proposal is to get architectural and engineering plots approval to have two things. One, to move our Chapin bus depot to another location that we would use policy FFE for, as well as using this site as a stacking area to move those cars off of Old Bush River Road. So just wanted to put that on the record for the community. I know the parents have asked us what solutions were possible, and we thank the board for moving forward with feasibility for solution.
Thank you, Dr. Ross.